we are. Don't want it too dark. You can go a little lighter. It's pretty bright outside. I just gotta make sure it's bright enough. Oh yeah, there we go. Make sure it's bright enough in here. Hey, how is everybody? How you doing? Well, you know, it's kind of like a Monday. It's not Monday, it's Tuesday. But it's like a Monday because yesterday was a holiday. And I know, like, you know, where'd you go? What'd you do? Well, you know what we did? We had a luau. I said I was going to fire up the grill because it was Memorial Day. So, you know, just Bob and I and the cat, you know. So got the grill going. And then I got one of those little plastic wading pools from the hardware store. Awesome, $9, totally worth it. And I made pineapple and chicken and veggie skewers. It was all very Hawaiian. And I got some Hawaiian music, you know, and one of those little tiny speakers, you know, you can plug in. So it was like, with like pineapple, chicken. And I got these tiki mugs that I got like from one of the party stores, Oriental Trading, the little tiki mugs and the things with the parasols. And we had drinks with parasols in them, and chicken and fresh pineapple, and dipped our feet in the pool and listened to Hawaiian music, and it was like we weren't even here. It was like, it's fantastic. So I got the hot mug. I got the hot mug with coffee. Oh, that's fabulous. And I have Girl Scout cookies. Wow. Girl Scout cookies. That's in the spring, right? I'm hoping, because I hope it's Girl Scout cookie season again, because I'm almost out. That was my stash from the freezer from last year. Well, and indeed, what's going on about what day is it? What day is it? So, we just had Memorial Day. Today is Tuesday. Taco Tuesday. It's always Taco Tuesday at my house. Tuesday, National Blueberry Cheesecake Day. I do like that. Oh, also National Paper Airplane Day. Do you like paper? I love paper airplanes. Wait, do I have a thing that I can make the paper? I can. Wait. So, a National Paper Airplane Day. So you have to do this part. And then, you just like half. This is how I learned to do them as kids. This is how you did them. Now, then we did, now some people just like go, no. We did like an extra fold thing. How the heck? Oh, there we go. So that it's kind of more like a jet. National Paper Airplane Day. I used to be good at this. I was a kid. So then, yeah, so you do the second fold. So you get that nice jet thing going on. And then that makes it more airplane. And then how did I do it? We did a thing where we folded the outside part out. The wings, made like wings. How did I do this? It's been a long time since the 3rd grade. There you go. So you fold the outside parts down, and then that gives you kind of wings. Now, when I was a kid, I was also told the trick was put a paper clip in the front, and it gives you a little bit of oomph. Yeah, right. There were no paper airplanes. But you know, there were paper airplanes before there were real airplanes. People were thinking of this stuff. It made it to the couch. It made it all the way to the couch. Well, there you go. There you go. Coffee. Is it red hair day? Now, you know, we're coming down the home stretch here on by the shores of Silver Lake. We're doing really well. Today is moving day, followed by the Shanty on the claim. They're finally on their homestead claim, because Pa stalled forever and ever. But then, like, tomorrow, it's where violets grow and evening shadows fall. Is that it? Yes, I think that's it. Tomorrow we're finishing by the shores of Silver Lake. And then it's the long winter. And it was a long winter. Look at the size of that thing. The long winter goes on for quite a bit. And the long winter, they're still in South Dakota. That she's still talking about the slough and all this stuff. So they're still down there. But then they have like serious, they stay in the same place. It's DeSmet, but they get more settled and the town gets built up and things start happening. But then they almost all freeze to death. And this is the one where they wind up, you know, twisting straw for the fire so they don't freeze to death and die. It's scary. But it's a big deal because Almanzo saves the day. So, is Dean Butler going to be back? You bet he is. So, shores of Silver Lake, coming down the home stretch. They're finally in their house. I'm so relieved. Moving day. And they're moving because there was a murder in town. There's now a crime rate in the middle of nowhere in Dakota. And Ma was freaking out. She's like, it's a murder. And Paul's like, we're moving. He's been stalling for a year and a half. But then he said, yeah, somebody just killed the guy. So we're completely moving now. Moving day. Wake up, sleepyhead, Laura sang out. And with both hands, she rolled Carrie back and forth under the quilt. It's moving day. Get up quick. We're moving to the homestead. Well, Laura has gotten older. Normally it'd be Ma waking up Laura, but now Laura's waking up Carrie. Quickly, they all ate breakfast, wasting no time in talk, and quickly Laura washed the dishes and Carrie dried them while Ma packed the last box and Pa hitched up the team. Oh yeah, they couldn't get out of there fast enough. Well, it was claim jumping. Now, as the murder was about, this guy went to his claim, and there was a guy in that house, in the shack there, and he shot him. So it was like, yikes. So people were jumping claims and shooting people. And so they said, no, we need to go to the house for some weirdo moves in and tries to kill us. So they are very, very, very happy. This was the gladdest. Ma packed that last box. This was the gladdest moving day that Laura had known. She's thrilled. Great. Ma and Mary were glad because this was the end of traveling. They were going to settle on the homestead and never move again. Carrie was glad because she was eager to see the homestead. Laura was glad because they were leaving town. Any excuse to leave town as far as she's concerned. Pa was glad because he always liked moving. And Grace sang and shouted in gladness because all the others were glad. She's sort of the new Carrie. She's like, I have no idea what's happening. As fast as the dishes were wiped, Ma packed them in the tub so they would ride safely. Pa loaded the trunk, the packed boxes, and the tub of dishes into the wagon. Then Ma helped him take down the stovepipe, and they put it and the stove in the wagon box. That'd be very heavy. That's why you need a wagon. He laid the table and the chairs on top of all, and then he looked at the load and tugged his beard. I'll have to make 2 trips so we can all ride, he said. Get the rest of the stuff ready, and I'll be back. But you can't unload the stove by yourself, Ma objected. I'll manage, said Pa. What goes up must come down, and I'll rig up some skids. There's lumber out there. Yes, probably ain't gonna work. He climbed into the wagon and drove away. Then Ma and Laura rolled the bedding into tight rolls. They took down Ma's big bedstead and the 2 smaller new bedsteads that Pa had bought in town, and they packed the lamps carefully in a box, right side up, so they would not spill the kerosene. Yes, that'd be important. They stuffed the lamp chimneys with paper and wrapped them in towels and packed them beside the lamps. Everything was ready and waiting before Pa came back. Now, I don't know about you, but we kind of moved a lot when I was a kid. And we used to pack all the time. And that's how we did it, with dishes and glassware and lamps. You stuff them with newspapers and you wrap the plates in newspapers, dish towels, and stack them up. And so, I learned to pack ages ago. Now, I just saw Dan McBride is on here. I got to find the bring him on camera thing. That's what I got to do. Yes, we're going to have some fun. All right. Well, so they've got everything's all wrapped up in paper. But he put the bedstead and the boxes in the wagon and laid the rolls of bedding on them. Okay, this is like a lot of stuff. Then Laura handed him the fiddle box, and he tucked it carefully among the quilts. On top of it all, he laid the whatnot. He laid the whatnot, the thing he built that is actually called a whatnot. It's all the rage in Iowa. That's what they said. Laid the whatnot on its back so that it could not be scratched. Then he brought Ellen and tied her behind the wagon. Now, Caroline, up you go. He handed Ma over the wagon wheel to the spring seat. Catch! And he tossed Grace into Ma's lap. He just grabbed the baby. He just threw the baby at Ma. Catch! Okay. And he tossed Grace. He seriously did. Now, Mary, he said gently, and he helped her to the board laid close behind the seat while Laura and Carrie clambered to their places beside her. I'm glad he didn't throw the rest of them in there, so that's like terrifying. But he made it. He did. He managed to unload the stove by himself and come back and then load like another load that shouldn't have fit in one wagon. And, it's crazy. All right. Now then, said Pa, we will soon be home. For pity's sake, Laura, put on your sunbonnet, Ma exclaimed. Yes, indeed, put on your sunbonnet. This spring wind will ruin your complexion. And she pulled Grace's little bonnet farther forward to protect her fair, soft skin. It's good, it does, totally works. Mary's face was far back in her bonnet, and so was Ma's, of course. Yes, the proper ladies, yeah, there you go. No sun, no, it's good, fight skin cancer and freckling and all, it's good for you, very smart. So I weigh mine a little bit further back there. Oh my. She's gonna go, yeah, so she's got hers all the way down. Slowly, Laura pulled up her own bonnet by its strings from where it hung down her back, and its slatted sides came past her cheeks. They shut out the town. From the tunnel of the bonnet, she saw only the green prairie and the blue sky. A tunnel of the bonnet. See, there you go. This is the correct way on a hot, sunny day to actually wear a bonnet, but you can't. It's very Handmaid's Tale. You can't see anything. So that's why Laura doesn't like it. She wears her down her back so you can see where she's going. She kept on looking at them while she held onto the back of the spring seat and joggled to the wagon's jolting over the wind-dried ruts of mud. While she was looking, suddenly into the sunny green and blue came two brown horses with flowing black manes and tails, trotting side by side in harness. Their brown flanks and shoulders gleamed in the sunshine, and their slender legs stepped daintily. Their necks were arched, and their ears pricked up, and they tossed their heads proudly as they went by. Now, you know how Laura is with the horses. She loves them horses. Oh, what beautiful horses, Laura cried. Look, Pa, look. She turned her head to watch them as long as she could. They drew a light wagon. A young man stood up in the wagon, driving, and a taller man stood behind him with a hand on his shoulder. In the moment, the backs of the men in the wagon loomed up so Laura could no longer see the horses. Pa had turned around in the seat to watch them too. Those are the Wilder boys, he said. It's Almanzo, she just saw Almanzo and his horses. He said, Almanzo's driving, and that's his brother Royal with him. They've taken up claims north of town, and they've got the finest horses in the whole county. By George, you seldom see a team like that. With all her heart, Laura wished for such horses. No, she's not in love with the boy. She didn't see the boy, Almanzo, and go, oh, look at that handsome man. She went, hey, check out the horses. That's all she thinks about. With all her heart, Laura wished for such horses. She supposed she could never have them. Pa was driving south now, across the green prairie and down a gentle slope toward Big Slough. The ranker, coarse grass of the slough filled its struggling hollow, and up from a water pool flapped a heron with dangling long legs. Told you about them herons, just everywhere. How much do they cost, Pa? Laura asked. What, Flutterbudget? Said Pa. Horses like those. A match team like that? Not a penny under $250. Maybe $300, said Pa. Why? Nothing. I was just wondering, Laura replied. $300 was so much money that she could hardly imagine it. Only rich people could pay such a sum for horses. Laura thought if she were ever rich, what she would have would be two sleek brown horses with black manes and tails. She let her bonnet fly back in the wind, thought of riding behind such fast horses. Far to the west and south, the Big Slough widened and spread. On the other side of the wagon, it ran narrow and marshy to the narrow tip of Silver Lake. Quickly, Pa drove across the narrow part up to the higher ground beyond. There it is, he said. The little claim shanty stood bright in its newness in the sunlight. It looked like a yellow toy on the great rolling prairie covered with rippling young grass. Ma laughed at it when Pa helped her from the wagon. It looks like half a woodshed that has been split in two, she said. You are wrong, Caroline, Pa told her. It is a little house only half built, then half unfinished. We'll finish it now and build the other half soon. The little house and its half-a-slanting roof were built of rough boards with cracks between. He always does that. He always does that, and they nearly freeze. There were no windows and no door for a doorway, but there was a floor, and a trap door in the floor opened into a cellar. I couldn't do more than dig the cellar and put up rough walls yesterday, said Pa, but now we're here. Nobody can jump our claim, and I'll soon fix things up for you, Caroline. I'm glad to be home, Charles, said Ma. Before sunset, they were all settled in the funny little house. The stove was up, the beds were made, the curtain was hung to make 2 tiny rooms of the 1 small room. Supper was cooked and eaten, the dishes washed, and darkness was falling softly on the prairie. No one wanted the lamp lighted. The spring night was so beautiful. Ma sat gently rocking by the doorless doorway, holding Grace in her lap and Carrie close beside her. Hasn't he learned from, like, wolves, Indians, etc., that he really needs a door, like with a lock on it? And they moved there because somebody just killed someone over a claim. But he got no door. That's all. But at least they're on the claim, and if he fixes it up the next day, they might make it. Mary and Laura sat together on the threshold. Pa sat just outside the doorway in a chair on the grass. They did not talk. They sat looking while stars came out one by one, and frogs were croaking in the big slough. A little wind was whispering. The darkness was velvety soft and quiet and safe. All over the huge sky, the stars were twinkling merrily. Then Pa said softly, I feel like music, Laura. Laura brought the fiddle box from its safe place under Ma's bed. Pa took the fiddle from its nest and tuned it lovingly. Then they sang to the night and the stars. Oh, drive dull care away, for weeping is but sorrow. If things are wrong today, there's another day tomorrow. So drive dull care away and do the best you can. Put your shoulder to the wheel is the motto for every man. Well, now he's got a point there. Doesn't matter. Today's horrible. As Scarlett O'Hara used to say in Gone with the Wind, tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow is another day. Could be better. Put your shoulder to the wheel. What are you going to do? Ask me. Hey, I'm stuck in the house, but I'm out here reading these stories every single day, aren't I? I got my cookies. I had a luau in the yard last night. You know, you do what you do. This is so good. Cookies, coffee. Got cookies, coffee, and a bonnet. I'm happy. I am going to put up the little shepherdess just as soon as the roof is finished over our heads, said Ma. Pa's fiddle answered her with little notes running like water in the sunshine and widening into a pool. The moon was rising. The creamy light crept up the sky, and the stars melted into it. Cool and silvery, the moonlight lay over the wide, dark land, and softly Pa sang with the fiddle. When the stars are brightly beaming, and the sighing winds are still, when the twilight shadows hover o'er the lea, oh, there's a tiny candle gleaming from the cottage 'neath the hill, and I know the little beacon shines for me. Oh, oh. So now they are in the shanty on the clay. The first thing we do is dig a well, said Pa next morning. Now, the first thing you do, Pa, is you put a door on the house with a lock on it, since the reason you moved there is because a guy took over someone's claim and shot him. You totally need a door. You need a door, you need a roof, you need a real house, and then you need to dig a well. Pa, get it together. He shouldered his spade and shovel and went whistling toward the slough, while Laura cleared the breakfast table and Ma rolled up her sleeves. Now, girl, she said cheerfully, all together with a will, and we will soon have things to rights. Put things to rights. But even Ma was puzzled that morning. The little claim shanty was as full as it would hold. Everything must be carefully fitted into the space. Laura and Carrie and Ma lifted and tugged the furniture this way and that, and stood and thought and tried again. Mary's rocking chair and the table were still outdoors when Pa came back. Have you ever done that where you moved into an apartment that was so small? You were like, we'll put the sofa here. No, okay. Where do we put the TV? And there's just no room, and you're like shoving things in. Hysterical. Well, Caroline, your well's all dug, he sang out. 6 feet deep in good cold water in quicksand. Now I'll hammer together a cover for it so Grace can't fall in, and that'll be done. Remember, it's the exact same sentence from the one in Kansas. And then I'll dig this well and I'll put a lid up so Carrie can't fall in. So Carrie, as we know, is famous for falling into mine shafts and wells and manholes. Apparently Grace, just knew Carrie, they're worried that she's going to fall in a hole. Too funny. He looked at the disorder, pushed back his hat to scratch his head. Can't you get it all in? Yes, Charles, said Ma. Where there's a will, there's a way. It was Laura who thought how to fit in the beds. The trouble was that they now had 3 bedsteads. When they stood side by side, there was not room for Mary's rocking chair. Laura thought of setting the little bedsteads together tight in the corner and putting the foot of the big bedstead against them with its headboard against the other wall. Then we'll hang a curtain around our bed, she said to Ma, and another curtain across beside yours, and that leaves room for the rocking chair against your curtain. That's my smart girl, said Ma. Laura's our regular architect there. Against the foot of Laura and Mary's bed, the table fitted under the window that Pa was sawing in that wall. Here, let me make you a window. I forgot to put in a window. That's hysterical. Ma's rocking chair went in beside the table, and the whatnot fitted in the corner behind the door. In the fourth corner stood the stove, with the dish cupboard made of a packing box behind it, and the trunk fitted between the stove and Mary's rocking chair. There, said Ma, and the boxes will go under the beds. It couldn't be better. I'm not hearing any room to walk between any of this furniture. We have to climb over furniture to get at anything. I mean, I've done that in places like, well, put the bed here, then which is there, and put this against it. So the table, the dining table, is literally against the wall on one side and up against the bed on the other. It's like, hi, dinner's ready. And then there's a rocking chair, like you can barely, you'll be going like this. There'll be like no room to rock. How are they going to do this? Now, I like when she said she made a cupboard out of a packing box. I've done that. When Bob and I had our first apartment, we had all these boxes, and we didn't have much furniture yet. So we're like, well, we got the sofa. Oh, we don't have end tables. But we had a lot of boxes. He said, what are we going to do? I said, tablecloths. Tablecloths are the answer to everything. Did you know this? You can Annie's fabrics, whether Annie's linens, you get them from your grandma. You can go online. Tablecloths. You get a bunch of cheap tablecloths in a nice color. Maybe something that matches your couch if you got a couch. If your couch is really beat up, get a really big tablecloth and you put it over that. But what you do is you take 2 of those big moving boxes or banker's boxes, whatever, of your stuff, and you stack 2 of them and put a nice tablecloth over that, and that's one end table. And you do in the other end, it's another end table, and you put a lamp on it, and you just start stacking boxes, throwing tablecloths over them. The place looked great. The funniest was we got a dishwasher, but it was one of those little ones on wheels in the kitchen. It wasn't a built-in. This place was so tight, didn't even have a built-in dishwasher. Got the thing on wheels. Didn't look very nice, really, to have this big old appliance sitting there. And I was trying to make this place look nice, even though it was small. Threw a big, gorgeous red tablecloth over it. Put a vase with a dozen roses on top of that dishwasher. Had people over for dinner. I said, well, I'm going to do dishes. They said, oh, no, we'll help you. I said, no. I'm just going to load them in the dishwasher. It'll take 2 minutes. I have a dishwasher. It's fine. They said, the heck? Where? You don't have a dishwasher. Where's your dishwasher? I said, it's under the vase. Awesome. Yes, you can throw tablecloth over anything and make your house look fabulous, even if there's like nothing there. I mean, I've always been like that. Okay, so they've stacked all this furniture, and I'm not quite sure where you walk into the room, since you barely have to climb over the dining table and 2 beds to get to the stove. That's what that sounds like. I'd love to see a schematic or drawing of that. There, said Ma, and the box is going to the bed. It couldn't be better. Well, it could, but at dinner, Pa said, before night, I'll finish this half of a house. And he did. He put in a window beside the stove to the south. He hung in the doorway a door bought from the lumber yard in town. Oh, a boughten door. Then all over the outside of the shanty, he put black tar paper, fastening it down with lath. Laura helped him unroll the wide, black, tarry-smelling paper down over the slanting roof and the walls of the fresh, clean, pine-scented boards, and she helped him cut it, and she held it down in the wind while he nailed on the lath. Tar paper was not pretty, but it stopped all the cracks and kept out the wind. "Well, there's one good day's work done," Pa said, when they sat down to supper. "Yes," said Ma, "and tomorrow we'll finish unpacking and be finally settled. I must do a baking, too. It's a blessing to have yeast once more. I feel as though I never want to see another sourdough biscuit." No, we love sourdough biscuits. Everyone's making. This is so funny because what she say, "I get no yeast." Okay, as everyone noticed, there's you can hardly get yeast at the supermarket right now. You can hardly get flour. Shh, I found the flour. I found a supermarket down the road. It's tons, has all the flour. I don't know why. They got all the flour. They got the good cake flour. They got the regular flour. I bought some. Not telling. But the reason is there's no terrible wheat blight. There's not a shortage of wheat or flour. There's not a shortage of yeast. Everyone's home and we're all baking. It's awesome. Everyone, as they said in this one article, people who made bread once a year are making it every month. People who made bread and baked muffins and cookies once a month are baking every week. People who baked every week are baking every day. People who've never baked in their lives are making 17 loaves of bread. There's no yeast and flour in the store. It'll wear off. Sourdough's the new thing. Everyone ran out of yeast. They're making sourdough. And sourdough's awesome. But Ma is actually tired of the sourdough biscuits and is excited to have yeast. Well, there you go. But sourdough's awesome. And then Pa says, "Your light bread is good. And so are your sourdough biscuits," Pa told her. "But we won't have either if I don't rustle something to bake 'em with. Tomorrow I'll haul a load of wood from Lake Henry." "May I go with you, Pa?" Laura asked. "Me too," Carrie begged. "No, girl," said Pa. "I'll be gone quite a while, and Ma will need you." "I wanted to see trees," Carrie explained. "I don't blame her," said Ma. "I would like to see some trees again myself. They would rest my eyes from all this prairie and not a tree. Not even a bush to be seen in any direction. I love it. They move all the way to the... They had trees. They were in the big woods. They could have stayed in the big woods. No, they went out and now they got no trees. See what Randy said. I'm baking like a mad boy. Never baked. See, I had to get flour because Bob bought me chocolate chips when it was National Chocolate Chip Day, and I made the cookies. And he doesn't bake, so he had no idea how much I needed for a batch, and bought 3 of the jumbo bags. I could bake chocolate chip cookies every day from now to Kingdom Come. There's enough chocolate chips in the house. I was like, "Dude, that's too many chocolate chips." He's like, "I don't know." So I got flour, and so now I can make the cookies. He's like, "Well, what? I didn't want to get too few chocolate chips. That would be crazy. So I had to get enough chocolate chips." But, well, so I will be making more chocolate chip cookies. You know what I haven't made in a while? Banana bread. I make amazing banana bread. Oh, yeah, walnut bread. Okay, see, now you got me started again. Terrible. So they're complaining about no trees. Well, don't live on the prairie. This country's going to be covered with trees, Pa said. Don't forget that Uncle Sam said into that. There's a tree claim on every section, and settlers have got to plant 10 acres of trees on every tree claim. In 4 or 5 years, you'll see trees every way you look. I'll be looking in all directions at once, then, Ma smiled. There's nothing more restful than shady groves in the summertime, and they'll break the wind, too. Well, I don't know, said Pa. Trees spread, and you know what it was like back in the big woods of Wisconsin, grubbing out stumps and breaking our backs in the sprouting hoe to keep a little land clear for crops. It's restful to have clear prairie land like this if you're going to farm. But Uncle Sam don't seem to look at it that way. So don't worry, Caroline. You're going to see plenty of trees all over this country. Likely, they'll stop the wind and change the climate, too, just as you say. Now, that's another thing. The phrase invasive species comes to mind. Nowadays, they think more about that, well, if it's not a native species, or at least similar to the plants that grow in the area, you can kind of mess stuff up. You bring in these other trees and plants that do not grow there. Now they say maybe that's not such a good idea. Back then, it's like, great, plants. For instance, in California, you've seen our beautiful Hollywood Hills, and they're all covered in trees. A lot of willows, a lot of pine. If you look, you can find pictures online of Hollywood, like the Hollywood sign and Hollywood Boulevard from like the 1920s and 30s. Nothing. There's nothing on that hill. Nothing. It's like chaparral. It's the prairie. And then what happened is people planted. And at one point, Chinese willows were fashionable. And now the whole Hollywood, they're all full of Chinese willows. So, yes, these things happen. And now they kind of question whether you want to plant too many things that aren't really supposed to grow there. Like, you should make your prairie, and your forest. But they're like, nah, we need some trees. We do not have enough trees. We're bringing in trees. Well, they were all too tired for music that night. Soon after supper, they were all asleep. And by bright and early next morning, Pa drove away toward Lake Henry. The whole world was gay in the early sunshine when Laura led Ellen to drink at the well. All over the prairie, the little white blossoms of wild onion were dancing in the wind. Down the slope of the little hill below the shanty, patches of wild crocus spread yellow and blue in the young grass, and everywhere the sheep sorrel uncurled its little pink lavender flowers above sleek, clover-shaped leaves. Oh, pretty. Laura bent down to pick them as she walked, and slowly nibbled the delightfully fresh, sour little stems and petals. She's eating the weeds, but some of them are good, yes. From the grassy swell where she picketed Ellen, she could see the town beyond to the north. Big slough curved between them and spread wide southwest, covering acres upon acres with its rough, high grass. All the rest of the whole enormous prairie was a green carpet flowered with spring blossoms. Big girl as she was, Laura spread her arms wide to the wind and ran against it. She flung herself on the flowery grass and rolled like a colt. She lay in the soft, sweet grasses and looked at the great blueness above her and the high, pearly clouds sailing in it. She was so happy that tears came into her eyes. And a big girl there. Now, Laura spread her arms wide to the wind and ran against it. So, everyone who watches the show at the end, when it goes do 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 do, and Laura goes and she runs down the hill like that and jumps up in the air, and everyone says, "It's a plane. She can't play airplane. It's 1876. She's not playing airplane. That's terrible. Why is she playing airplane? She's not playing airplane." And I always said, well, she's playing bird. In the books, Laura spread her arms and ran against the wind. This was a thing that Laura Ingalls simply did. She was, and that was all the way back in Dismay. See? Harumph. Historical accuracy. Kind of, sort of. I don't know. Suddenly she thought, have I got a grass stain on my dress? She stood up and anxiously looked, and there was a green stain on the calico. Soberly, she knew that she should be helping Ma, and she hurried to the little dark tar paper shanty. Here she is, running around, playing in the grass, and as a great big grown girl. "It's tiger striped," she said to Ma. "What is, Laura?" Ma asked, looking up startled. Tiger striped. She was putting her books on the bottom shelves of the whatnot. "This shanty," said Laura, "striped with yellow lath in the tar paper." "Tigers are yellow with black stripes," Mary objected. "Oh, like Mary's ever seen one." "You girls unpack your boxes now," said Ma. "We'll arrange all our pretty things on these upper shelves." On the shelf above the books, there was room for Mary and Laura's and Carrie's little glass boxes. Each box had frosted flowers on its side and colored flowers on the lid. The three made that shelf all bright and gay. Ma stood the clock on the fourth shelf. Its brown wooden case spread up in a carved lacy pattern from its round glass face, and behind glass painted with gilt flowers, its brass pendulum waggled to and fro, tick-tock, tick-tock. On the smallest, very top shelf above the clock, Laura set her white china jewel box with a tiny gold cup and saucer on its top, and Carrie put beside it her brown and white china dog. That was at Christmas when they got all that stuff. "It's very pretty, I'm sure," Ma approved. When the door is shut, the whatnot quite dresses up the room. Now for the china shepherdess. Then she looked around quickly and exclaimed, "Oh, mercy! Is my bread sponge risen already?" This was an emergency on the part. My bread sponge! The bread sponge was lifting the lid of the pan. Ma hurriedly floured the breadboard and kneaded the dough. That's going to be some puffy bread. Then she got dinner. She was putting the pan of light biscuits in the oven when Pa came driving the wagons up the hill. Behind him, the wagon box was piled high with willow brush that he'd brought for summer fuel, for there were no real trees at Lake Henry. "Hello, Flutterbudget! Let dinner wait, Caroline," he called. "I've got something to show you as soon as I pick up the team." Quickly, he slipped the harnesses off the horses and dumped it across the wagon tongue. He hurried the horses away to their picket ropes and came hurrying back. Then he lifted a horse blanket from the front of the wagon box. My coffee. "Kitty, what are you doing?" Kitty's having a drink of water. "There you are, Caroline," he beamed. "I covered them so they wouldn't dry out in the wind." What, Charles?" Ma and Laura craned to see into the wagon box, and Carrie climbed up the wheel. "Trees!" Ma exclaimed. "Little trees," Laura shouted. "Mary, Pa's brought little trees." "They're cottonwoods," Pa said. "They all grew from seeds of the lone tree that we saw across the prairie when we were coming out from Brookins. It's a giant of a tree when you get close to it. It's seeded all along the edge of Lake Henry. I dug enough of these seedlings to make a windbreak clear around the shanty. You're going to have your trees growing, Caroline, quick as I can get 'em set in the ground." He took his spade out of the wagon and said, "The first one's your tree, Caroline. Pick it out and tell me where you want it." "Just a minute," Ma answered. She hurried to the stove and shut its draft and set back the pot of potatoes. Then she picked out her tree. You can't have your potatoes burning while you're picking out trees. "I want it right here by the door," she said. With his spade, Pa cut a square in the sod and lifted the grass. He dug a hole, loosened the soft soil until it was fine and crumbly. Then carefully, he lifted the little tree and carried it without shaking the earth from its roots. "Hold the top straight, Caroline," he said. Ma held the small tree straight by its top, while with his spade, Pa sifted earth over its roots until the hole was filled. Then he stamped the earth down firmly and stood back. "Now you can look at a tree, Caroline, your own tree. We'll give each one of them a pailful of water after dinner, but first we'll get the roots in the ground. Come, Mary, it's your turn next." Pa dug another hole in a straight line with the first. He brought another tree from the wagon, and Mary carefully held it upright while Pa planted it. That was Mary's tree. Now, I hope he's leaving enough space, because those trees get huge. Cottonwoods get big. "Yours is next, Laura," said Pa. "We'll make a square windbreak all around the house. Ma's tree and mine by the door, and a tree for each of you girls on each side of ours." Laura held her tree while Pa planted it. Then Carrie held hers. The 4 little trees stood up straight from the patches of dark earth in the grass. "Now Grace must have hers," said Pa. "Where's Grace?" he called to Ma. "Caroline, bring Grace out here to plant her tree." Ma looked out of the shanty. "Oh, she's out there with you, Charles," she said. "I see this one coming. Oh, I thought you had the baby." "I guess she's behind the house. I'll get her," Carrie said, and she ran calling, "Grace!" In a minute, she came from behind the shanty, her eyes large and scared, and the freckles standing out from her pale face. "Pa, I can't find her." "Oh, she must be close by," said Ma, and she called, "Grace! Grace!" Pa shouted, "Grace!" "Don't stand there. Go look for her, Carrie." "Laura, go," Ma said. She explained, "The well," and ran down the path. "Oh, no, is Grace in the well?" Let's hope Grace didn't fall in the well. The cover was on the well, so Grace had not fallen into it. Yay. "She can't be lost," Pa said. "Good. I left her outdoors. I thought she was with you," said Ma. "You were totally supposed to be watching the baby." "She can't be lost." No, Pa insisted. "She wasn't out of my sight a minute. You were planting trees." Grace. Everyone thought that, he thought Laura was watching her, and Neil thought Pa was. This is how these things happen. He shouted, "Grace! Grace!" Toddlers, they're fast. Laura ran panting up the hill. She could not see Grace anywhere. Along the edge of the big slough toward Silver Lake she looked, and over the flowery prairie. Quickly, she looked again and again, seeing nothing but wildflowers and grasses. "Grace! Grace!" she screamed. "Grace!" Pa met her on the slope as she ran down, and Ma came up gasping for breath. "She must be in sight, Laura," Pa said. You must have been seeing her. She can't be." "Terribly," he exclaimed. "The big slough." He turned and ran. "Oh, she didn't fall in the hole. Maybe she's in, the river." Ma ran after him, calling back, "Carrie, you stay with Mary. Laura, look for her. Go back." Mary stood in the doorway of the shanty, calling, "Grace, Grace." More faintly from Big Slough came Pa's shouts and Ma's, "Grace, where are you, Grace?" If Grace was lost in the Big Slough, how could anyone find her? The old dead grass stood higher than Laura's head, over acres and acres for miles and miles. The deep mud sucked at bare feet, and there were water holes. Laura could hear where she stood the sound of the coarse slough grass in the wind, a muffling sound that almost smothered even Ma's shrill call, "Grace!" Laura felt cold and sick. "Why don't you look for her?" Carrie cried. "Don't stand there. Do something. I'm going myself." "Ma told you to stay with Mary," said Laura, "so you better stay." "She told you to look," Carrie screamed. "Go look. Go look. Grace! Grace!" Oh, Carrie's getting very upset. "Shut up! Let me think!" Laura screeched. Oh my. And she started running across the sunny prairie. Terrible. Now, do I leave this hanging? This is a cliffhanger with Grace is missing. Okay, well obviously she's in the later books. So I guess they find her. So tomorrow we're going to find missing baby Grace. That's kind of scary. They left it right there at the, oh no, where is Grace? We've lost the baby. No, she didn't get far. She didn't get far. So tomorrow we will find baby Grace. Hopefully. And we'll wrap this puppy up. And then the next day, which will be Thursday, we'll be starting the long winter, and we'll see when Almanzo shows up and see what we'll have Dean Butler pop in and visit us. So eventually everyone will pop in. And then now today is Tuesday, which means that at 5 o'clock, California time, Pacific Daylight Time, is my little show, the Alison Arngrim show, the little podcast radio thing. And I'm still doing it because we can't go to the studio, but people can come in on Zoom and I get to talk to them, and it's fabulous. So we'll be zooming with Pamela Bob from Living on a Prairie. And she's great. She's a big fancy Broadway actress too. She's fancy. She just real plays. And musicals. She sings, all that stuff. So we'll talk to about that. Talk to her all about that and about the show and why she created this and why she's hilarious. Lovely. Things. Getting ready for another show. Yes, in June on 25th, we will be doing Confessions of a Prairie Terror again in the living room. We'll do it again. And we will have more guests here doing readings, and I will be getting bonnets out in the mail, and more coming, and it'll all be fine. And this tin cup I got from a different place, but there are tin cups out there. I'm gonna put up all the store, my store and all the prairie stores, because DeSmet and Mansfield and Walnut Grove and the lot, they all could use the business, because they're closed right now, but their online stores are open, and they have the books, and they got the bonnets, and they got cool stuff. They got China Shepherdess dolls. You can get a little China Shepherdess like Ma. So you should patronize these lovely people and buy their stuff. And I'm going to put up all their things on my page soon. So take care. And Priscilla likes her bonnet. Yay! And I will see you tomorrow. Wash your hands.